The rain had been falling since dawn, turning the city streets into mirrors of grey when Daniel Ortiz wiped grease from his hands and rolled out from beneath the lifted sedan. At 35, he had the quiet confidence of a man who fixed things for a living and expected little praise for it. The garage was small, tucked behind a row of shuttered shops, and most customers never learned more about him than the fact that he charged fairly and worked late. Across town, a charity gala buzzed with polished shoes and polished smiles. Aiko Tanaka stood near the edge of the crowd, a glass of water in her hand, watching people talk past one another. At 30, she was newly appointed as the cultural liaison for her father's foundation, tasked with bridging language gaps during international investments. Her Japanese was flawless, her English good enough to get by. She hated crowds, but duty had a way of overruling comfort. The night took a turn when a sleek black limousine stalled on the way back from the gala, coughing once before dying in the rain. The driver called for roadside assistance, but traffic snarled and time stretched. Aiko stepped out, heels sinking slightly into the wet pavement, and noticed a small garage sign glowing down the block. Against protocol, she walked toward it. Daniel looked up as she entered, rain beading on her coat. "We're closing," he said gently, then noticed the worry in her eyes. He nodded toward a chair. "What's wrong?" She explained the breakdown, apologizing for her English. He listened, already reaching for his jacket. Outside, the limousine's engine bay told its story quickly. Daniel frowned, tightened a cable, tested a connection, and shook his head. It would take time. The driver hovered nervously, phone pressed to his ear, explaining delays to someone who did not like delays. Aiko tried to translate the technical explanation to her father's assistant over the phone, but the words tangled. The assistant's voice grew sharp. Daniel, focused on the engine, spoke quietly without looking up. He spoke Japanese. Not a phrase or two learned from a guidebook, but fluent, precise Japanese. He explained the fault, the fix, and the timeline with calm clarity. Aiko stared, the rain forgotten. The driver stopped pacing. On the phone, the assistant went silent. When Daniel finished, he looked up, finally aware of the attention. "Sorry," he said in English, embarrassed. "Old habit." The assistant demanded to know who he was. Aiko translated, still stunned. Within minutes, the assistant arrived, followed by a security detail, and soon after, Aiko's father, Hiroshi Tanaka, a billionaire whose reputation for exacting standards preceded him. Hiroshi listened as Daniel repeated the explanation in Japanese, unfazed by the entourage. "How did you learn our language?" Hiroshi asked. Daniel shrugged. "I was stationed near Yokosuka years ago. I fixed engines on base, learned because people matter more when you understand them." The limousine purred back to life as Daniel finished the repair. Hiroshi studied him, rain dripping from the brim of his umbrella. He offered Daniel a business card and an invitation to visit the foundation offices the next day. Daniel hesitated, grease under his nails, then nodded. The following morning, Daniel stood in a glass-walled boardroom that smelled faintly of citrus and money. Executives murmured, assuming he was lost. Aiko greeted him, relief softening her smile. She translated as needed, but Daniel surprised them again, switching effortlessly between languages, clarifying technical details about machinery imports the foundation was considering for a new eco-plant. A skeptical executive interrupted, questioning Daniel's credentials. Hiroshi raised a hand. "Understanding is a credential," he said. "Proceed." Over the next hours, Daniel dissected proposals with a mechanic's pragmatism. He spoke of maintenance realities, supply chains, and the dignity of work done right. When disagreements arose, he bridged them with language and patience. The room changed, voices softened, decisions sharpened. By afternoon, Hiroshi made an offer, a consulting role to oversee operations where cultural misunderstandings had cost millions. Daniel asked for a day to think. He returned to his garage, the familiar smell grounding him. That night he called his sister, talked it through, and decided that fixing bigger engines didn't mean abandoning his values. Weeks passed. Daniel split his time between the garage and the foundation, mentoring teams, insisting on fair wages and clear communication. Aiko worked alongside him, translating less and listening more. They learned each other's rhythms, her careful planning, his instinctive problem-solving. Respect grew into something warmer, steadier. At a public announcement, Hiroshi acknowledged Daniel's contributions. Cameras flashed as he spoke about the power of being understood. Daniel kept his hands clasped, uncomfortable but resolute. Iko met his eyes and smiled, pride unmistakable. Late one evening, after a long day, they stood on the garage's threshold, city lights flickering. "People see labels," Iko said softly. "They didn't see you," Daniel smiled. "They didn't need to. Someone did." The rain returned, gentler this time. Daniel locked up, and they walked together, speaking in whatever language felt right, proof that the right words, spoken by the right person, could change everything.